And the last thing you want is 5,000 non-functional devices to show up.
Right.
So the idea is to build a test process that the manufacturer can do so that they can validate that they programmed their machines correctly, all parts are placed correctly, that all the different aspects of it in transitioning from a small onesie twosie prototype to building in quantity, that nothing was lost in that transition. And that when building in quantity, they can still build 5,000 functional usable devices. That end of line test is less involved because we already tested the functionality. It's more about, were parts placed properly on the board? Was everything soldered on correctly? Was everything plugged in where it was supposed to be? As it rolls off the line, does it do what it's supposed to do? There may be a quick functional test. Oftentimes the end of line tests are automated. The parts will come off the line and go into a tester. The tester will automatically run a certain amount of tests on the boards or the parts. And again, the idea being to ensure that what's being manufactured will function the way it's supposed to and the way the validation test showed that it would. And then the third aspect of testing is regulatory testing. FCC, UL, FDA, whatever, depends on the product, what regulatory regime is applicable. Making sure the device meets regulatory requirements is also testing that's done and has to be done with the candidate finished product. The regulatory portion is taken into account throughout the design process. At ES, we're familiar with the UL requirements. We're very familiar with FCC requirements. Some sort of industry-specific requirements we may not be familiar with. We would work with clients to understand what those are for a particular industry, if they have a regulatory body doing additional testing. The idea is to understand that early in the design process, but ultimately it has to get through testing with the final product.
Right. You work with medical device companies. So FDA, is that part of this?
Yes. So it certainly, in many cases, is part of that. And when we work with our clients to help them through that certification process and provides a technical expertise. In the case of FDA, it's primarily documentation they're looking for. There are clinical aspects, but the client typically does most of that. So if you come up with a new device, the client's going to have to set up clinical trials, and they're going to have to get people to put this device on that does whatever it is that it does. And they set up control groups. They do all that stuff.
Right.
But as part of that, there is frequently technical documentation needs. And so that is where we will work with them to support those technical documentation needs, documenting the design, identifying critical components, documenting design choices and design iterations. All of those types of things are, in the case of the FDA specifically, are things that are typically part of the certification process.